NASA's newest exoplanet mission called Pandora is taking a look at alien atmospheres, and it's NASA's first mission to have its operations based here at the U of A, says Professor Chris Impey. The city of Tucson spends more than $10 million to support homelessness. However, Wells expects to see no sudden change on 4th Avenue. Reporting for Journalism 385, I'm Marissa Orr. Over 10 years ago, the Rincon Rotary Club created the Rotary Local program to help Tucson educators. The program's main fundraiser is the annual Taste of Chocolate event, which gives 100% of the proceeds to support teachers with services and items needed for learning. La noticia de la subida de la matrícula se viene mientras la U of A continúa a bajar su déficit financiero. Estudiantes que busquen financiamiento pueden contactar la oficina de becas y apoyo financiero aquí en el edificio administrativo. Para Cat's Eye News, soy Marissa Orr. No matter which candidate wins, teachers like Rocha and Wilson will continue to advocate for student rights. 4th Avenue is a hot spot for locals and tourists in Tucson, and even with the entertainment, homelessness is seen on this street. 4th Avenue is a hot spot for tourists and locals in Tucson, but it's also home to some homeless people in this city.
I like to come to 4th Avenue because it's busy, sort of, without it ever being like disturbing.
Addison Hall has lived in Tucson for 5 years. Hall says some people are generous, but not everyone. He also says 4th Avenue is dangerous at night.
I feel like they can be like aggressive, especially late at night. Like you can get followed and stuff, but as long as you don't really bother them, they don't really bother you, but they seem like they kind of shun you if you're dirty and stuff.
Jacob Wells is the manager at Brooklyn Pizza Company. He says sometimes customers complain about the homeless hanging around his shop.
Occasionally, there are definitely people who complain. To a certain extent, it's usually about the smell, which is weird.
Wells watched homelessness increase on 4th Avenue during his decade at the pizzeria. He says the need of removing them from the area has grown.
There's definitely been some unfortunate incidences where homeless people have to be asked to remove, and it's not as easy or peaceful as we'd enjoy.
Tucson is trying to reduce homelessness. The city offers resources like housing, food, and health assistance. But city official Ernesto Portillo says they need more funding.
Yes, it costs a lot of money, but it costs less money to take care of a person on the street than to imprison the person.
If you want to help, Portillo says to volunteer or talk with the homeless. He says you'll walk away with a better understanding of the problem.
They are human beings with problems, with issues, no doubt. We all have problems and issues. Unfortunately, their problems are so extensive, so deep.
Hall also says talking with the homeless is good to do.
I like to talk to the homeless people, figure out what they're doing, because I think they're interesting, cool people too, you know?
The city of Tucson spends more than $10 million to support homelessness. However, Wells expects to see no sudden change on 4th Avenue. Reporting for Journalism 385, I'm Marissa Orr. NASA's newest exoplanet mission called Pandora is taking a look at alien atmospheres, and it's NASA's first mission to have its operations based here at the U of A, says Professor Chris Impey.
This one's a much more modest mission, but it has a big science goal. It's going to just do a 1-year mission to observe about 20 extrasolar planets, or planets orbiting other stars.
The satellite has a 45-centimeter wide telescope that will explore if there's life beyond Earth, says Impey.
It's going to sort of spectroscopically sniff the atmospheres of these planets to look for things that might indicate life, like water or oxygen.
U of A Astronomy and Planetary Sciences professor Daniel Pai is leading the mission's Exoplanet Science Working Group. Grad student Furan Nguyen signed up to work alongside the team of scientists.
So my role on the Pandora small-sat mission is made primarily to aid with target reviews as of now. So as you know, Pandora will be observing 20 different stars in order to monitor their stellar activities through time in the hope that we can disentangle the real transit signal of the planets, or more specifically, what is in the atmospheres of the planets versus what is in the atmospheres of the stars.
Nguyen says it's amazing to work on his first NASA mission. He also says he's excited to evaluate the results.
The key question is still there. Are we really observing the atmospheres of the planets, or are we seeing activities that might be entangled from the stars? And I think Pandora will create a really robust evidence for the stellar activities and help answering that question.
The Pandora mission is funded by the Pioneer program, and it is set to launch in October 2025. For Cat's Eye News, I'm Marissa Orr. Over 10 years ago, the Rincon Rotary Club created the Rotary Local program to help Tucson educators. The program's main fundraiser is the annual Taste of Chocolate event, which gives 100% of the proceeds to support teachers with services and items needed for learning.
Teacher's the only job where you steal office supplies from home and bring them to work. So we wanted to help alleviate that situation.
James Mandolini is the Rotary Local coordinator. He says one of their key tenets is to multiply their local impact, which helps them build bonds with educators and create more jobs.
We try to fulfill the grant locally, okay? So instead of buying a guitar for a music teacher from Amazon, we buy it from our partner, Instrumental Music.
He says many teachers have benefited from the Rotary Club. Teachers like Hannah Sines say she and her family of educators have been helped over generations.
I first heard about the Rotary Club through my childhood dentist, Dr. Davenport, and have applied for many grants over the years and have been supported every time.
She says her educational supplies purchased by the program have enhanced her students' learning experience.
I think it's important for educators to know that there are programs available for them that can help support learning in their classrooms, getting resources that would otherwise be unavailable to them.
This year's 13th annual Taste of Chocolate event has about 30 local vendors showcasing their chocolate creations. There is also a new chocolate liquor booth added to the fundraiser.
It's just a super fun event. Our slogan is Eat Chocolate, Help Teachers.
The Rotary Local hopes to raise $40,000 from this year's event to support Tucson educators. For the University of Arizona, I'm Marissa Orr. New and returning voters are making their way to vote on Election Day. Even with many different opinions in this election, some voters share the same beliefs, like two local teachers. They both understand the importance of this election and already sent their ballots early. Being teachers, they know their vote will impact their students' futures, and they believe voting for the Democratic Party would be the best option. Marion Rocha has been teaching for 9 years. She teaches 8th graders English and says she loves her job. Because vice presidential candidate Walz was a teacher, she says he knows the foundations of teaching unbiasedly.
If there are kids that are refugees, if there are kids that are white, black, Latino, that's who you have to teach, and that's who you have to be open-minded about.
Sarah Wilson has been teaching high schoolers for 23 years. She teaches a radio class where students express creativity. She also agrees Walz's background makes him understand equality within schools.
If you assume things about your students, derogatory things about your students from the get-go, like you have to believe in everyone's ability and potential, or you're not doing your job as a teacher.
Wilson says students' fundamental rights can become limited if the other party wins. She says it can create long-lasting impacts in public schools.
It feels just like an outright attack that we don't know what we're doing, and we shouldn't be allowed to make choices about what kids need to learn and what kids need to know.
Rocha hopes her vote will change where funding goes. She says money should improve education instead of focusing on student data.
I mean, look at our tables. They're from the 90s. I think instead of paying all these companies that make these standardized tests, we could be having more supplies for kids.
No matter which candidate wins, teachers like Rocha and Wilson will continue to advocate for student rights. Since the Hamas attack and the Israel invasion into Gaza last year, University of Arizona students are left with opposing views. The division has grown as some protest for the return of the ones kidnapped and others protest for a ceasefire. The school's response differs on whether it comes from the administration or staff and faculty members.
The president issued 2 statements in the wake of October 7th. The second one, I think, was helpful in establishing that support for Hamas is against the values of the universities.
We have seen a huge amount of support from the campus community.
Both believe national news reports on intense protests, but disagree on how local news described the scenes.
Each of the reports seemed to be sympathetic to the side that it was covering.
The media has a responsibility to be more honest about who's showing up and what they're saying.
Although strong in their own beliefs, just like the countries, the two departments are just a short distance away. City of South Tucson Mayor Paul Diaz is against Proposition 409. This week at a press conference, he addressed his concerns over the approved measure.
The proposition is adding a secondary tax of $10 every month. Residents in the 1.2 square mile city will pay the additional tax. The money is going to fund the fire department, yet there's no specifications to exactly what and how much.
So my concern really is that, hey, we don't have economic development, but we're going to get the money off of these people that are delinquent in taxes, lose their homes.
Diaz says 409 will make life harder on many South Tucsonan citizens.
$100 for that's insulin for somebody, that's the pills for somebody. You know, it causes a burden.
Diaz says the proposition lacked transparency, which bumped up the yes votes. Hoax threats are increasing at alarming rates this year, from elementary schools to high schools. The online threats happen on popular social media platforms like TikTok, and when the threats are shared, the problem grows. Sheriff Chris Nanos says the Pima County Sheriff's Department is taking steps to stop the threats, but says parents can play an important role in their investigation.
Screenshot it, don't share it, don't send it to the school, quit, just stop right there. Screenshot, call 911, our deputies will respond, and we will take it from there.
Nanos says protecting children starts with building family relationships.
I can't stress enough, the first one who's going to see these things and know about these things are your kids. Stress to your parents. Build that relationship with your kids where they're going to trust you enough that they will come to you.
Nanos says the Sheriff's Department takes every threat seriously and will continue to work with schools to strengthen the safety.